welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 150, and the title of this episode is High Probability of a Major Attack on the Financial System. And we know that John Kerry was out there today trying to convince the American people that they have proof, and, we have this hard evidence which we cannot show you. We have information that is confidential, so we can't show you, and we have other information from anonymous people which we can't reveal who they are. So we have undeniable proof that Assad used chemical weapons, which we know to be false because Syria and Russia invited the UN Security Council in to inspect for chemical weapons, and it just so happened that chemical weapons were used at this point, and right away France, UK, Australia, Israel all said, and the U.S. said it was Assad who did this. And it made no sense because why would Syria invite the UN Security Council into the country to inspect for chemical weapons and then use chemical weapons on their own people? If they were going to use them, they would use them on the paid mercenaries, which are the rebels that are fighting that he's fighting against. So it makes no sense. Now, because of all of this that's happening, they have put out warnings about attacks on the U.S. financial systems. And the reason why they're doing this is because they know that the U.S. financial system is on its last legs and it will be collapsing. And they are preparing and brainwashing everyone incrementally, the way they like to do it, to convince you that, another country is going to hit the banks, the stock market, and bring things to a screeching halt, and they will be able to blame this on another country. And the blame will be off the central bank and the U.S. government. This is what they're setting this whole thing up to be. But before we get into all of this and what's going on, let's get into the economic collapse news. And we see things that are happening out there. They're not getting better. They are getting worse. The corporate media likes to put spins on everything, and they always show the opposite side, but they don't show you the meat and potatoes of what's really happening. And the unemployment in Europe is still at 12.1%. It has not gone down. It has not gone up. And this is the average unemployment. But among the member states with the highest increases of unemployment are Cyprus, that went from 12.2% from May 2012 to 17.3% of May 2013. Greece from 2012 went from 23.8% all the way up to 27.6% of May 2013. And we see this occurring all throughout Europe. We have Spain, which is around 25%, France, which is around 25%. We're seeing very high unemployment among youths who are under 25. This is supposed to be the backbone of every country, the new blood coming in, the new people who are going to buy homes, who are going to contribute to the system. And we're seeing unemployment ranges from anywhere from 22% all the way up to 56%, depending on which country you look in. So things are definitely not getting better. They are getting worse. And let me just say, if unemployment, if they use the real calculation here in the United States, was at 23%, people would be outraged. It would be, but that's what the real unemployment is here, but everyone's being fooled by the manipulated numbers, which were changed back in 1994. They don't count certain people. They have food stamps now, which they didn't have during the Great Depression, so you don't see people on food lines. They have programs to help you. They extended unemployment for a very long time, so people still had money coming in. Yes, they might have downsized their homes and moved into a small apartment, and they're surviving on that. But you have to remember, with the population that all had full-time jobs and owned their houses prior to 2008, 2009, are now stuck in rentals, working at part-time jobs, and many people are unemployed. This is why the banks have foreclosures on their books. This is why the Fed is purchasing $40 to $45 billion a month of all this toxic real estate, because the banks do not want to sell these homes at reduced prices. So the Fed's coming in and giving them a higher amount and taking it off their hands, and then the banks are taking that money and putting it into the equity market, building up the stock market. And that money never reaches the public at all. And that's why the stock market continually goes up, 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 up. And you can tell by what type of jobs are out there, and these are the 10 fastest growing jobs in America: a skincare specialist, personal care aides, personal financial advisors, coaches and scouts, human resource specialists, massage therapists, interpreters and translators, music directors and composers, petroleum engineers, and the number one is service unit operators, oil, gas, and mining. And there is no production, there is no creation of anything. These are all pretty much service sector type of jobs. And we're not seeing any type of growth anywhere. And they had to manipulate the GDP numbers again to show that the economy is growing. They're going to go all the way back to 1929 and recalculate everything all the way forward to show that the GDP numbers are rising. So the U.S. economy is basically built on an illusion on manipulated inflation numbers, manipulated unemployment numbers, manipulated GDP numbers. And today, we can see that personal income had a miss, and both spending only rose about 0.1%, and income only rose about 0.1%, where they were expected to grow at 0.2 or 0.3%. So it completely missed what they thought was going to happen. Plus, the compensation of employees, the core component of personal income, tumbled $21.9 billion. This was the biggest monthly slide since May 2012. And what we're seeing is a sequential decline in wages right now. And it all makes sense. If everyone is moving into part-time jobs because they cannot find full-time jobs, income and wages are reduced. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Now, we know that foreign countries are dumping Treasury bonds. The Fed, we have countries that are selling, so there has to be a buyer. Well, there are no other buyers, so what does the Fed have to do? The Fed has to go out and purchase the bonds. And the Fed has increased their bond holdings 0.3% in 1 week. So last week, the Fed owned $1.663 trillion worth of bonds. This week, the Fed owns $1.678 trillion worth of bonds. So they have just increased their portfolio. And the reason for this is because foreign nations are starting to dump the Treasury bonds. And why are they doing this? Because they realize that these are going to be worth absolutely nothing. Okay, now China is making a move to buy $3.1 billion, which is a 1/3 stake in an Egyptian oil and gas business. And they are doing this so China builds up its access to global energy reserves. So China is making deals all over the world right now. They are making deals working with other countries to trade oil in their currency, not the U.S. dollar, because you have to remember what's happening here. The United States government, with the central bankers, are waging war across the globe to maintain the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. Meanwhile, China is making deals all over the world to use their currency as the reserve currency. And now China is making deals with oil companies and natural gas companies, so because they are prepping themselves to be the world reserve currency. And we know September 5th and September 6th, there is a G20 meeting, and there are even more talks now that at this point they are going to discuss about dropping the US dollar as the reserve currency and most likely making China the world reserve currency. The United States government and central bankers are not going to go along with this. They are going to wage war, and they are going to go down kicking and screaming and take out as many countries and people as they can until they get their way. And this is what we're seeing now in Syria and Iran. They pretty much took control of the Middle East, and the U.S. government with the central bankers are trying to maintain control and keep all of these countries using the U.S. dollar. And there is many wars going on in every single one of these countries. I mean, why do you think we're doing drone strikes in Yemen? Because there's people in the country who are rising up, and the United States government needs to push them back down because they're trying to maintain the status quo of the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. If the U.S. does not take Syria and Iran and switch them into the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, the U.S. dollar is pretty much finished, and they know this. They know this is their last attempt. They know they must maintain the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency because China right now is making so many deals around the world that it's getting harder and harder for the U.S. to maintain what they're trying to do with force, and it's becoming impossible. But back to this, Beijing has been encouraging Chinese companies to go abroad to secure supplies of energy and raw materials to keep world's second largest economy moving. And here they are making deals all over the place. And they know that eventually they will be the reserve currency. They've been stockpiling gold. They're going to use the gold to back their currency. Russia has been stockpiling gold. And I'm going to tell you what's very interesting. Looking throughout the internet and everywhere I can find, I cannot find anywhere that the U.S. has been purchasing gold. Just a side note there. Now, to get ready for this war, Japan, as I discussed before, is a pacifist nation, and they're looking to change Article 9 in their constitution, where they can declare war and protect allies, during a war scenario. And right now, Japan is seeking the biggest defense budget rise in 22 years. We do have to remember that Japan just launched the largest warship since World War II. So what do you think is happening? They are preparing for what is coming, and they know that something is coming, and they know they need to prepare. Just like India just announced that they just built a new aircraft carrier and a new nuclear submarine. So we can see that all these countries are starting to strategically move and build new assets. The United States has been encircling China with bases. One of them is in the Philippines, and they're doing a rotational of military and military assets in the Philippines, but their whole plan is to circle China because they know in the end, when the World War III breaks out, they have everything in position. Okay, now France is ready to go and will participate in the Syrian attack. The UK is kind of out of it. Uh, Cameron got voted down. The people have spoken. They do not want to go to war. Italy is out, and a lot of the other countries are saying this is no good. NATO just said we are out of this, and they are not going to participate. So we can see that a lot of countries are starting to back off of this, but the U.S., full force, they are going for it with France. And this goes on to say that France is prepared to take action against Syria despite the vote against military intervention in Britain. And they don't really care because they understand that there is going to be a collapse and they need to do this. Now, we have learned that Saudi Arabia, Saudi Prince Bandar, supplied the paid mercenaries with chemical weapons. Basically, what happens here is the United States funnels money through Saudi Arabia. They have the prince there supply the paid mercenary with money, with weapons, with anything that they need, and this way it's going through many different channels so it doesn't get back to the U.S. And this is what we're seeing. And this report goes on to say Saudi Arabia provided chemical weapons for an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group, which they blamed for the August 21st chemical attack in the region. The article, co-authored by a veteran AP reporter, said interviewers with doctors, residents, anti-government forces, and their families suggest that the terrorists in question received chemical weapons via Saudi spy master, Saudi Arabia's intelligence chief Prince Badr bin. And all this evidence is coming out, but then again we have the corporate media showing John Kerry on TV telling us that they have undeniable proof that it was Assad using the chemical weapons. So, and I mean, when he was out there speaking, this is one of the quotes we have: identified 100 videos attributed to the attack, many of which show large numbers of bodies exhibiting physical signs consistent with, but not unique to, nerve agent exposure. The reported symptoms of victims included unconsciousness, foaming from the nose and mouth, constricted pupils, rapid heartbeat, and difficulty breathing. Well, I hate to say this, but I mean, chlorine, if you're exposed to chlorine gas, also gives you the same type of symptoms: difficulty breathing, throat swelling, loss of vision, severe pain in the throat, burning eyes, nose, ear, lips, vomiting, and foaming. So it's very difficult to believe what they're saying right here. And they went on to say that the Syrian opposition doesn't have the capability to fabricate all these videos, and these physical symptoms were verified by medical personnel, and they are consistent with chemical attack. And you can go and clean your pool and get exposed to chlorine gas and have the same symptoms. So it's very difficult to believe. Now, Obama had some talks behind closed doors. They did not want it televised, but some of the things that came out of this was Obama speaks on Syria during meeting with Baltic leaders. Obama calls Syria chemical weapons attack challenge to the world. Obama says Syrian use of chemical weapons threatens U.S. Obama says he'll continue to consult with Congress on Syria. Obama says he hasn't made final decision on Syria attack. Obama says Syria action will be limited with no ground troops. Well, and he also says, Obama says Syria chemical attack threatens our national security. Well, let's just put this in context here. First of all, it's not his decision to go and attack someone. That is the decision of Congress. The only way that he can make a decision is if the United States was attacked by a country, which no country has attacked the United States. So Congress, he has to make his case to Congress, and Congress has to vote on it. And right now it looks like they're not really looking at going to war at this point. He's saying that that this is not going to be the same as Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, that's what they told us in Iraq and Afghanistan when they went in. He also told us that he would be pulling the troops out of Afghanistan. A couple reports back, I said absolutely not. They will never remove the troops from Afghanistan. Why? Because first of all, the United States trades in drugs. They protect the poppy fields, which are used for opium. Second, Afghanistan has one of the largest copper deposits and other natural resources. The central bankers will never, ever leave that country. China is already making a bid to go in and help the Afghan people mine this copper. And there is no way that the central bankers are going to allow China to come in and take these hard assets. No way. Obama says no ground troops will be going into Syria. Well, that's very interesting because they've been planning this for 20 to 25 years. They've been training paid mercenaries in Jordan, okay, which are not U.S. troops, to go into Jordan and to create a no-fly zone in the country. They were dispatched on August 17th and 19th. They're either on the border of Syria or inside Syria at this point. There is an underground base called CENTCOM with 270 officers. This has been built and established to conduct all military operations that will be used with the war with Syria. There are also 2,200 Marines standing by right near Syria, which could be in Syria within hours. We have 5 destroyers, 2 aircraft carriers, I think, what is it, like 2 or 3 amphibious warships, all standing by. The only reason that he's saying that he wants to do a limited strike is because of this. They are hoping, because you have to remember, they've been paying the mercenaries to overthrow Assad. The paid mercenaries, and the civil war has been going on for years, which they call a civil war, which most of the paid mercenaries aren't even Syrian. They have been losing. Assad has been pushing them back. What the president wants to do is do a limited strike. They want to use cruise missiles to try to take out Assad's forces. This is what they're trying to accomplish right now. Assad right now is moving his forces all around, putting them in underground bunkers, and trying to make it very difficult for the U.S. to find the Assad forces. What they're hoping to do with this strike is to eliminate some of the forces, so these paid mercenaries that were trained by the U.S., who have been sent August 17th and 19th to Syria, they would be able to infiltrate Syria and hopefully overthrow Assad. If this doesn't work, their little plan, the next phase is an all-out war. Now you have to remember, Russia and China back Syria and Iran. The paid mercenaries are not U.S. soldiers. So the U.S. never went into Syria. Okay, this is a scenario that he's trying to do right now. But then again, Congress most likely is not going to approve this. So how else can Obama get into Syria with an attack? The only way with the War Powers Act is if Syria attacks the U.S. Now, this could happen tonight or tomorrow morning, and we might see a missile, a torpedo, some other thing happen. It will not be Syria. It will be a false flag event. They will say it's Syria, but this is the only way he can override Congress, because I don't believe that Obama wants to wait until September 5th and 6th because this is when the G20 is coming up. They need to get in there quickly and try to get this thing done. Also September 30th ends the fiscal budget for giving aid and arming the paid mercenaries in Syria. So there's a lot riding on this right now. And at this point, I don't see any other way that he can pull this off except with some type of false flag event. Now, the false flag might happen out, which most likely, I'm going to say high probability, will happen out in the Middle East on the forces that are out there, or it could happen in the U.S. to really bring it home and get what he needs. But hopefully, that, not hopefully, but most likely it will happen out in the Middle East. That's what I'm seeing right now. And because of all this, the government, the U.S. government, is very worried, and they're telling the people that there could be some type of retaliation of some type of attack on the financial system, which we know is very, very fragile at this point. And we know they've been building this propaganda up for over a year and a half about cyber attacks. I believe my episode number 2 was cyber attack, and from that point forward, I've been telling everyone what I believe is going to happen, and on episode 138, I kind of laid it out of how this is going to go down. But I'm going to get into that in 1 minute. I just want to go through other news here. We know that we have this no-fly list, which is secret. You don't know how you get on there. You don't know how to get off of there. But a federal court took a critically important step yesterday, and it's placing a check on the government secretive no-flies list. And in a 38-page ruling in Latif versus Holder, the ACLUs challenged the no-fly list. They are saying that this is unconstitutional, and they need to know how to get people off of this list and how people get on this list. And so we also know that this list is also being used for gun control in New Jersey. Governor Christie uses this list, and if you are on it, you can't apply for a gun permit. But you don't know how you got on there. You don't know how to get off. It's just one of their lists. This is one of many lists that they have. And but hopefully right now that this is going to work in our favor and break down this list of who's on there, how do you get off, and we'll have to see how this turns out. Now, we know that the economic collapse is moving forward. It's moving forward quickly. It's escalating. And what they need to do is finish what they started out to do, and that is gun control, control of information, which is the Internet, and eventually declare martial law and basically make the U.S. as a dictatorship. So Biden is out there telling everyone that we'll target congressmen who oppose gun control efforts. And this goes on to say that the White House will continue its push to strengthen gun control laws, even if it means targeting members of Congress who oppose its agenda. If Congress doesn't act, we'll fight for a new Congress, Biden said. They have the UN Arms Treaty and the gun bill pending in the Senate, plus CISPA. They are sitting there waiting for an event. This will happen in the next couple of weeks. Things are going to really start moving forward quickly, and hopefully everyone has been getting prepared. If you haven't, you have a small window to start doing this, and I would suggest to do this. Now, what we're seeing in the reports as for cyber attacks is that Syria, what they're saying is, will attack the U.S. Where it hurts, which is the financial system. And a person claiming to speak for the group has stepped forward to tie those attacks directly to the rising likelihood of a U.S. military action in response to al-Assad using chemical weapons against his own people. A self-described operative of the SEA, which is the Syrian Electronic Army, told ABC News in an email exchange that if the USA launches an attack on Syria, we may use methods of causing harm both for the U.S. economy or other. And what has happened since then is that the U.S. is planning for a possible wave of computer attacks against companies by hackers connected to Syria or Iran in retaliation for any military strike against the government of Assad. And the National Security Agency has tapped hackers' computers in the Middle East to access their ability to disrupt power grids, financial systems, or other critical infrastructures, according to another person familiar with those operations. And the Pentagon has started formulating plans in case hackers connected to Syria or ally Iran launch computer attacks in retaliation against any U.S. military strike against the Assad government. And they are getting ready to protect as best they can, which they're saying, the financial system, the power grid, the water supply, and the nuclear reactors. And what this goes on to say is because of the warnings they have received, banks are now on alert and watching for any unusual activity on their computer networks, the American Bankers Association said. We have not formally raised the threat level, but we are on high alert against potential attacks against our systems. And what's going to happen here is they need a way to cover up this collapse, which is coming this fall. And I call it the Part 1 collapse because I laid it out in episode 138. And we can see that they're building the propaganda up for this. We also have to remember, and I keep mentioning this, the FBI private sector advisory, which says to all financial institutions that there is a cyber attack threat on September 11th. How did they know this? This came out like a week ago, but they know this. They are preparing to bring down the financial system. And they will do this because we have seen very strange anomalies in all different companies, internet companies. We've seen it in NASDAQ. We've seen it in the Eurex. We've seen it in Google, Amazon. We've seen it in Netflix, Vine. We are seeing many different glitches. We've had attack on the New York Times, the Huffington Post, Twitter. They are making preparations. We did have a Quantum Dawn 2 drill, which allowed them to set everything up and test what a cyber attack on the financial system would be like. We have a power grid drill coming up in November, which will simulate cyber attacks and other attacks on the power grid system. So all of this is coming together, and it will happen during this fall. And it will allow the U.S. government and the central bankers to shift the blame onto another country, and it looks like they're going to shift this onto Syria so they could really ramp up the war. And what we're seeing is many foreign nations dropping and selling their treasury bonds, and the Fed is right now is picking up more and more treasury bonds. How long can they do this? Not much longer. This is why they're looking at this taper, which they know they can't do, which they're never going to do, because they did a litmus test and they saw what happened. They saw the markets take a dive when they mentioned it. So now the only alternative is to crash the system and blame it on someone else. And what this allows them to do, it allows them to increase quantitative easing. They can double it, they can triple it, because what's going to happen is when the system comes crashing down, the foreign nations are going to sell more and more treasury bonds. If there's a seller, there has to be a buyer. The Fed is going to need more money to gobble up these treasuries. They're going to need to increase QE. Right now, they just can't come out because they've been building the case with their propaganda that the economy is getting better, unemployment's going down, GDP is going up, the European nations, everything is getting better. You see what they're doing? They're building it up, building it up. Everyone who's still sleeping believes the economy is getting better. The cyber attack hits, blame it on another country. We were on the precipice of recovering from our recession. We were right there. Oh my God, look what happened. They just crashed the system. The government, the Fed, we will do everything in our power to help stabilize the system. The U.S. government has given the Fed permission to increase QE by double, by increasing it 2 times or 3 times. And now the Fed is now printing 170 or $220 billion a month because they know they need to keep up with the amount of bonds that are selling. The rest of the American people who are still sleeping don't realize this. They think they're trying to help out. They're not. The system is crashing. The war will go into full effect at this time. Russia will get involved. China will get involved. Japan will get involved. During this time, as we know, there will be bail-ins. Banks will be frozen. You will not. Bank accounts will be frozen. You will not be able to get your money out at this time. So if you haven't taken any money out, I would start doing it. I would start prepping if you haven't already. If you're new to this, if those who are been listening to me, I would continue prepping. For those who had just joined, I would start with food, water, medical supplies, batteries, fuel for your car. I would get some weapons just to protect your family. And lastly, I would get gold and silver. I would take cash out and put it in someplace safe, because when the banks freeze everyone's account like they did in Cyprus, you will not be able to get your money out at this point. And we can see this really moving forward right now. They are prepping for everything, and we can see that this will go into full swing come this fall, early winter. And eventually what will happen is the Fed and the U.S. government, as this war is happening to cover up this collapse, they will be pumping the markets back up. People will lose a lot of money. They're going to lose their retirement. I mean, last crash in 2008, people have lost 38% of their wealth. This time, it's going to be much, much worse. People, it's not going to be good. I mean, people are going to commit suicide. People are going to be depressed. The government and the Fed are going to try to pump the markets back up. This will probably only last until spring, maybe early summer, and then we will be in a full-out war. The whole system will start to deteriorate, and we will be in a collapse. Europe will be in a collapse. This will be World War III, and at this point, things will start to really fall apart. And this is why people for so long have been saying to prep. The president, the Fed, the U.S. government will eventually declare martial law. There'll be curfews. There'll be a lot of rioting. You will need to protect your family from people breaking into your house, because you have to remember, those people who have not been preparing, who are hungry, who do not have water, who do not have the basic supplies, are going to start to go house to house looking for these things. And it's going to be a scary time. Just like back when Hurricane Sandy hit, I have a brother-in-law who lives in Long Island. He said at night it was extremely scary. There were no lights. He lives on the water on the Long Island Sound. He said boats would pull up in the back of the houses, and these people had left their homes and went to hotels that had generators. And he could hear windows being broken. He could hear gunshots. And he said it was the scariest thing. He does not own a weapon. He said he had a bat. That's what he had to protect himself in his home. And he said you heard uh, people up and down the streets. And the worst thing, he said, there was no police, there was no DHS, there was no FEMA, there was nothing there where he lived. So he was on his own. And I'm telling you this story not to scare everybody, but to prepare yourself and to get ready. And if you haven't, please, the worst case scenario, all these people, myself, everything that we report to you is completely wrong, and you just end up with a lot of water, a lot of food, a lot of batteries. You have cash in your house or wherever you put it. You have gold and silver. Worst case scenario, all of this is fake, and you just have all these supplies. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is everything that we're saying is true, which I believe it is because the evidence is way too strong. Your family is safe, you are prepared, you have supplies, and you are ready. Listen, everyone, I really appreciate you listening to me. If things do go down and the internet does cut out in the future, I will try to do whatever I can to get back on to give reports of what is going on. But everyone, I am doing another report on Saturday, which is tomorrow. So I will have another report up there. Everyone, be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks.